So good morning, everyone, and good afternoon for those who are on the East Coast time zone. If they're joining from the East Coast, I'm from Boston, and that's where I'm joining in. My name is Lalit Chunde. I primarily look after all of the business development and strategic partnerships for Sekian. So we'll be talking primarily about the Sekian aiXDR platform, comprehensive cybersecurity for digital era. Before I jump into the platform details, let me quickly talk about Sekian. So we started this company almost 6 years back, and our vision was very clear, which was to provide a comprehensive cybersecurity for digital era for any size organization. And one of the biggest issues with that is how do you align for different types of security postures, and that is what we try to do, and we try to simplify it so that the cost of operating various security tools is taken away completely and made as easy to operate as possible. And there are several reasons why we went that route. I'm just going to look at some of the trends, and these are still prevalent. A lot of these trends that we were looking at 6 years back are also still a lot more prevalent even today. And that is, the sophistication of the attacks is increased. There is a plethora of number of security tools that are at your disposal, and that typically causes a lot of misguidance, misinformation, and the tribal knowledge of operating this is very low. So there's not enough expertise of people to operate most of those, and bringing those together takes a lot more time. Also, the organization themselves have more and more devices and types of devices that are going onto the internet, right? There's a definite explosion of Internet of Things, and that grows even at the homes. And the current situation of COVID-19 sort of has put us in this fast track to digitize and bring the digital transformation into our life much faster. And so all these, and at that time, of course, cybersecurity as a service, perimeter depth, all those, and continued compliance and regulations are also things that have been sort of still happening in today's world. But the most important thing is, if you look at how an enterprise tries to secure itself, right? Most of the times, the enterprise builds what is called a defense in depth approach. And the defense in depth approach is sort of a layered approach to make sure you have various security areas covered well in order to reduce all the gaps and make sure you are fully protected. But this defense in depth is typically done with many silo products. And the problem lies with using many silo products and bringing that together to provide that defense in depth. And this is where the main issues of that approach is complexity. The cost of just operating all this and bringing them all together is very high. The cost of individual tools is very high. The capex itself is very high, and the subject matter expertise required for that is very high, and that sort of puts a lot of onus on enterprises and how much they can spend in order to keep this operating. And we've seen this even in most of the Fortune 500 organizations, that in spite of having this kind of a model, they are breached. So it is proven to not be, foolproof because of several gaps that exist, and those gaps exist because these tools are disparate tools. They are silo tools. If they were part of the single platform, it would have been a much easier and much better proposition. And the same problem exists even with the service provider market. So the idea there was, to use a SIM to bring together all these different sets of tools or EDR technologies, right, in order to address most of the market. But the bolt-on approach does not work because, the traditional SIMs have failed in many aspects. They have failed because they do require subject matter expertise, and the cost of that is very high. They do require a lot of operational complexity. I've seen this. Oh, we have a Splunk and we have a army of people to constantly work with it. And in spite of that, it takes sometimes a year to make it operationalize. And after another 6 months, it has to be a lot of rules need to be rewritten because they just don't they're not valid in the current scenarios anymore. Then you go with additional products like SOAR, like EDR, and try to bring all this together, and the cost keeps on growing like that. The second problem that this bolt-on approach is the visibility. You still don't get the full comprehensive visibility because the SIM was supposed to be that single tool to bring everything together. And it fails to do that because primarily it lacks the network visibility. And most of the times it's an add-on and not very tightly integrated with most traditional SIMs. This also results in the thread accuracy not being very good, and most of the subject matter experts or your SOC analysts, they spend their time in primarily going through all the mundane work of looking and reading through the logs and correlating those to make sure that they can make sense out of it. And they keep writing the rules and fine-tuning that in order to build use cases after use cases and keep fine-tuning those. So that basically is probably the key bottom line that causes tremendous pain to most of the organization. And most of the small, medium enterprises can't even afford a lot of that, right? So they go with whatever 1Zs or 2Zs best possible ways to protect them, and they're never fully comprehensively protected, and pricing is the main concern. Budget constraints is the main constraint there. And this happens even in Fortune 500 also. Yeah, I've seen that time and again, even there as well. And then automation is the next part, right? Most of the times it's expectations that the SOC analyst will keep on adding newer tools like SOAR, for example, to build better playbooks, keep on creating better processes, and so on. But that human intervention at various stages sort of slows you down as more and more attacks are becoming more real time with sophisticated tools, and that sort of puts a lot of onus on more automation and automated remediation onto this. So I was so far talking about all these different challenges that are facing the cybersecurity in an enterprise, whether it is a large enterprise or whether it is a medium to small enterprise, or whether it is a service provider that is providing this to various organizations. So we changed this game completely by creating what we call a OTM platform. It's called Open Threat Management. And aiXDR is a solution completely built on top of the open threat management. So you might have heard AI SIEM as our previous solution, which has been around for almost 3 years and has been doing the job for MSSPs as well as enterprises. But what we introduced just earlier this year is aiXDR, and the vision there was to add this endpoint agent capability to existing modules within that platform in order to complete that picture of how to handle some of the mobile devices or devices that are not connected to the company's network, and then suddenly join in over a VPN connection or to the cloud for some of the servers or SaaS applications or others. So in order to complete that picture, we did introduce that endpoint agent and created the aiXDR platform. And that's what I'll dive deep into as we go along. So bear with me, I'll touch upon all of these different technologies. So primarily what it does, right? aiXDR and AI MSSP solution is based on that. Is primarily built as a fast big data streaming platform. It is based on machine learning and AI techniques that we have natively developed. We have developed a lot of the behavioral science intellectual property, and based on that, we have created a lot of different types of threat models. Our goal is to comprehensively detect any type of threat and also remediate that using this single aiXDR platform. Most of the times it works out of the box, so you don't have to write the rules. You don't have to typical operationalization for a fairly large organization will be a week or less. And that is that week primarily is because of the network team's time to make sure that proper changes can be applied to firewalls, routers, switches, Active Directory, and so on. Most of the times, if those can be done in a day, things can be operational within a day. And that's the beauty of the platform, that it can start running from the day one, and the machine learning kicks in after a week. And then keeps on continuously learning and protecting the organization. Our goal was, give me a second. Our goal was to make sure that there are three things that we saw. One is a very comprehensive visibility into everything that the organization owns. And this could be, all the devices, assets. This could be all the applications. This could be all employees, guest users, contractors, subcontractors, and so on. We want to make sure that you can determine at any point who is doing what, using what application, on which host, accessing which databases or public URLs or SaaS applications, and so on and on. So that was the goal right from the get-go, and that's what you'll get. Second is definitely detecting threats that matter. So our goal was to reduce the alert fatigue drastically. A typical EDR or a SIEM platform will generate tons, hundreds and thousands of different indicators of compromise every day. And you have to constantly write the rules and fine tune those in order to reduce that churn so that it becomes manageable. And as you keep doing that, there is a very high chance that you are going to miss something that you are not supposed to miss. And that's where the behavioral science, the dynamic threat models, they all help in not missing that needle in the haystack, but at the same time reduce the alert fatigue or the churn on the organization or on the service provider. And the third thing that we wanted to focus on was once you detect the threat, you also remediate or you also stop that attack in pretty much real time. So that integrated solution, which can push policies, whether it is to Active Directory to disable a user's credentials, or whether it is to the firewall to directly block some new URLs or IP sites that are, that could be blacklisted or known to have bad reputation, or they are not badly reputed yet, but we know that they are botnet generated or a DGA, domain generation, that is robotically generated, things like that. So pushing those appropriate policies, or it could be even policy to your NAC, network access control, to quarantine a particular device, or it could be a policy to your endpoint agent to block a certain process from running, or to just block access to particular sets of files, and so on and on, right? So all those is part of the platform. Also, the part of the platform is an endpoint agent, which can sit onto all the mobile devices, which may not be on the company's network, may connect to the company's network periodically, and so on. So it does track offline activities and protects completely. So let me go into deep of how this all works. So second aiXDR is, as I said, it is the SIEM plus SOAR. SOAR is the security orchestration, analytics, and remediation. It also includes the user entity behavioral analytics. It also includes network behavior analysis, network traffic analysis. It also includes threat intelligence. We do have a global threat intelligence, which is part of the same license, no additional purchase required. It does include some intrusion detection and IPS capabilities as well. And that's how we solve some of the DLP and other file monitoring cases. It does include machine learning and AI. That's the primary use case for this platform, and vulnerability assessment, and primarily the EDR. So all of that, single platform, all of that inclusive, right? That's how the aiXDR is built. So what we do there is it does take a lot of the raw logs from all of the different servers, hosts, applications, and so on. And many a times that's more than sufficient unless you know that some of the devices are going to be mobile or can be constantly roaming in and out of the company's network. And in those cases, you do add endpoint agents onto those directly. Some of the critical servers also, you can add endpoint agents just for the file integrity monitoring, DLP, or other use cases. It also takes all of the different types of network flows, JFlow, SFlow, IPFix, all of those different types of network flows from various routers, switches, core switches, access switches, and so on. It also takes logs from all your domain controllers, all the identity management, DNS, DSCP, Active Directory, LDAP, and so on and on. It does not require you to have additional CASB brokers or other agents in order to integrate with cloud infrastructure. So all your SaaS applications, PaaS, even infrastructure as a service, all of that can be handled. And most of the public clouds like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, they are all supported. We have even tested out a lot of the private clouds based on HANA and other technologies. And this all is inbuilt. You don't have to spend additional money for purchasing those agents or those licenses. And it does integrate with most of your security system. And this could be your next-gen firewall, any of the web application firewalls, maybe network access control, the privileged identity management, and there could be other database tools like DAM and others, right? All of that is integrated and part of this. And so you can see that there's ton of different types of sources that we take in order to create what we call a comprehensive visibility into the organization. And then, let me talk about what all different engines there are. But let me take a pause. Was there a question? Okay.
No, we don't have question at this moment.
Great, thanks. Joaquin, feel free to stop me and ask any questions in the middle. So all that data goes through our collectors, and the endpoint agents data goes through the endpoint server in order to extract key metadata and enrich that. And that's the part of a couple of different units, and I'll show that in a deployment picture in detail. But that feature extraction and enrichment is constantly happening, and then that data is taken in a streaming fashion in real time through multitudes of different engines. There is definitely machine learning based behavioral science that's constantly detecting anomalies in user behavior or application behavior or host or database behavior. There's also the dynamic threat models, and as I was saying, this is where we have modeled how various different cybersecurity attacks work and how they cause, how they penetrate the organization and then cause the real damage. And I'll show this, some of this in a demo as well towards the end. And that's where a lot of our intellectual property has gone in. And then there are some security analytics based on what kind of ports to use and things like that. There's also global threat intelligence tied in, so we know what are the current threats that are happening in the internet, what are the blacklisted URL, what is the dark web telling us, and so on and on. And all that working together is constantly producing what we call advanced correlation of various things. So there is a real-time data of what is happening in the organization right now. There is a global context of what's happening in the internet right now. And then there is a historical context of what has happened in the past in this organization, right? All that historical context is taken into consideration. And then there is a situational context, many a times something that could look like a very bad thing, but may not be a real bad thing. For example, your typical employees log in from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And don't work after that. There could be some superstars that could be working 16 hours, 18 hours a day. But these typical employees work from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And suddenly that typical employee logs in at odd hours, outside the 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. window. Those will be detected as anomalies by machine learning immediately. It's a unusual time of the login, but does that necessarily mean that it's an attack, right? We don't know. And that's where a lot of so that session will be observed very carefully. It will be tracked based on how this user has behaved in the past, historically, right? If they have run certain applications, connected to certain databases, exchanged certain sets of, how many bytes and packets, and all that normalization is part of this platform. So any deviations from that, constant deviations from that will be known. If they start running a completely new application, if they start connecting to totally different servers, running network scans and other activities, immediate are transferring a huge amount of data to some public servers or social websites. Immediately, all that is tracked, and we know that this is an attack that is happening, and immediately the alert notification will come, as well as auto remediation will kick in. And that auto remediation pretty much uses actionable intelligence. It already knows how the network topology looks like, where the session is coming from, and so on, which user, what applications, which host. It has all that knowledge to immediately take an action and appropriately stop this attack from causing any damage. And that's where the power of the platform comes in, that it is comprehensive visibility, it's proactive threat detection before it becomes a major attack, and it's stopping that attack before it causes any damage. And all this, causes a continuous compliance of the organization and constant risk monitoring. We are constantly looking at even the changing posture of the organization. There could be new devices connecting in. There could be new applications introduced. There could be new servers moving into the cloud, and so on and on. Organizations are becoming more hybrid and digitized, and changing their postures periodically. You don't need to fine tune your EDR or SIM platform in order to take into account that change in posture. It automatically adjusts and produces the right set of results for you to immediately look at and decide, is this a real alert, or there could be cases where it is a false positive, and you can very quickly give a feedback that this is not an alert, and the algorithms and the platform completely adjust itself immediately. And I'll show some of that in the demo as well.
Well,
So
a
I
quick
will,
question asking about how to compare this XDR with another solution like the Palo Alto Cortex and another solutions, even Trend Micro.
yeah, great question. So most of the times you can see that the kind of data sources that we take, that's the most important comparison that you need to do. Palo Alto is not a SIM platform at all. It's a very good XDR framework. It, it is not a SIM platform at all. And that's where we will call it that it includes a lot more things except the SIM. And as a result, very, so just to define XDR, right? XDR we define as it does include managed detection and response, which typically is based on the SIM, advanced MSS, typically based on the SIM, and UEBA is usually part of the SIM. SIM, UEBA, SOAR, these are typically clubbed together as that advanced MSS services. NDR is another field, which is network detection and response. There are a lot of tools there, like dark trace, like extra hop, like old tools like Cisco Stealth Watch, and typical IDS, IPS, and so on. In traditional MSSPs like eCentire, SecureWorks, and so on. There's some kludgy ways of doing NDR, right? So those things, NBAD, NTA, and IDS, IPS sort of include your NDR portion of the things. And then EDR, there's a lot of EDR tools in the market like SentinelOne, CrowdStrike, Cylance, and so on and on that are more specific to, yeah, we can put the endpoint agent and we can monitor all the activities and highlight when there is an issue, right? XDR is sort of combination of all these three. So you have your advanced MSS, which is coming from SIM plus SOAR plus UEBA plus threat intelligence and machine learning and AI. Plus you have your NDR, which is the NBAD, NTA, IDS, IPS included. Plus EDR. So there are these three different types of services: EDR, NDR, and advanced MSS, which is also called MDR in some cases, all merged together to create the XDR. And that is what can give you the idea that XDR, when others like Palo Alto is calling XDR, you can ask them, hey, what kind of SIM or SOAR technologies are you using? And you'll get the answer pretty quickly. But having said that, it is a great tool. It is a great, Carta is a very great framework. I've seen that it does include, does have a lot of good results and so on. But our goal is to tell you that it still lacks certain things which aiXDR includes. That's the key differentiation. I hope that answers your question. Um, and same is true with Trend Micro, Sophos. A lot of these companies, they had the firewall and they had the endpoint protection solutions. They combined the two. They bought some additional siloed technologies and created a framework. Now, the other differentiation factor that I want to tell you is licenses. In order to purchase, the comprehensive cybersecurity kind of or XDR kind of functionality, what all licenses you need, right? You need to make sure that you combine cost of all that. Carta framework is good, but you may be given, you purchase these small things and then later on we can expand. Now you need to understand, what that small thing really includes. Ours is a single platform, single license, all of the functionality inclusive, right? That's the differentiation I'm talking about. And I hope that point got noticed. Any other questions, Akin, before I proceed?
You can proceed.
Oh, sorry about that. Yet another differentiation is the kind of use cases that are inbuilt and that we solve. There are many consulting services like Deloitte, Accenture, and McKinsey, and so on and on, Ernst and Young, and so on and all that have built their cybersecurity services around these use cases. And typically, they will charge you $20,000 per year per use case, and this is typical for up to 1,000 employee organization. So if you build something like 20 use cases, there itself you're talking about $500,000 per year cost to you. $500,000 cost to you to protect you for 20 use cases. I'm going to show you that we have such a breadth of use cases that you will see most of the XDR solution cannot cover. So it does cover all the typical cybercrime, right? Ransomware, malware, all those, zero-day malware, unknown malware, Trojan activities, and botnets, and so on. Because of the UEBA, we also cover all the compromised credentials, suspicious login, privilege misuse, all those use cases as well. If you have PIM and PAM, that's great. But if you don't, even then, we will protect you completely, and we will show you how those use cases are completely included as a part of this. Cloud security, I already talked about that at length. All your SaaS, PaaS, infrastructure as a service, all of that is included. We have our own inbuilt collector for all this. You don't need a CASB broker or others. But if you have some of those, we do integrate completely in those. Denial of service. These are typically, only network detection tools can determine. Very difficult to determine by just a SIM platform or just EDR platform. These are application layer or volumetric network protocol layer kind of attacks. We can detect those. Strict policy enforcement, and what we mean by that is typically network is segmented. That which group can access which, and there's some kind of a broader high-level segmentation within the organization. But the strict policy enforcement takes you a notch above that. It is called micro-segmentation, and that term is getting more popular these days. I think it's around for almost a decade now, but it is getting more popular in last 2-3 years. Micro-segmentation allows you much more fine-grained policies based on application port and other small tuple parameters to restrict or deny or allow certain accesses. And you can create those kind of policies using our tool, and instantaneously those policy violations can be alerted and stopped. You don't have to have firewall that does it. Most of the firewall don't do micro segmentation anyway, but there are some specialized tools that are coming into the market that work on top of the firewall to do that micro segmentation. And they're typically, software defined, SD-WAN, SDN based kind of technologies that are coming into the market. That's where the perimeter less, or software firewalls are moving anyways. Vulnerability exploits, all kinds of vulnerability exploits, known, unknown vulnerabilities. We use so many different applications day in, day out that we ourselves don't know how many. And God knows how many different vulnerabilities are there in those, right? So that unknown vulnerabilities exploits, right? How to detect those? Behavioral science is the best way to detect those vulnerability exploits, and that's what we do. And then brute force, web exploits, email exploits, DNS exploits. These are the common ways an organization typically gets breached. A hacker typically uses these techniques to enter the organization, and then once they are in the stealth mode, then they observe various things before they cause the real attack, which can cause huge damage. And this is happening time and again, whether it is Home Depot, whether it is Capital One, whether it is Experian, whether it is Target. All of these companies, or Yahoo, have experienced exactly these kind of entry points where the hacker has been in the stealth mode inside for quite some time, and then caused the real attack by stealing a huge amount of data, or causing a ransomware or something else, eventually causing a huge damage to the brand, to the company, and to the consumers, and so on.
Quick question here about how are the largest or the quickest time we need to use to detect an attack, an internal attack, or an insider, to help us to contain it better as possible.
It's all real time. aiXDR is built as an automated platform with the SOAR functionality built in. So it is fully automated. It detects the attacks in real time and can stop the attack in real time. Once you test it, you can just turn on the automation and be, in that peace of mind that if an attack happens in real time, it's going to protect you. And that's what we will show some of the use cases as well. Okay. Then continuous compliance is, as I said, it's a part of the platform. You do get a lot of the canned compliance reports out of the platform, and we can add more and more based on various regional laws and so on. NIST is probably the broader cybersecurity framework built almost a couple of decades back as a framework, and a lot of the different standards came around it, but it's still a much wider used standard. And GDPR is the latest in Europe. US government has a lot of different laws coming in, which are similar in that continuous compliance monitoring side. So we do provide those canned reports. And then there are a lot of other miscellaneous use cases, like just small mistakes by IT or other folks. One customer used us as a tool to detect that their load balancer was not working correctly, and that is what was causing network bandwidth choke at few times. And through our platform, they detected that. So some operational issues can be also detected, but the platform is primarily for comprehensive cybersecurity than network monitoring and operations. So just want to differentiate that quickly. And then because now we have added an endpoint agent, there's a lot more broader use cases for file integrity monitoring, for example, right? I mean, we can, on critical databases, applications, we can do the file integrity monitoring. Data loss prevention is a part of the platform as well. There are certain, because we have now endpoint agents, certain additional things that we can do in quickly quarantining even a process or a certain sets of new sets of files that are downloaded, and which could be a document, which could be an Excel file. Fileless malware has been very common these days. Most of the malwares are not .exe. They are fileless. They are inside the documents. Everything that we use day in, day out, and PPTs and so on. And that's what these use cases solve primarily. So very strong, wide breadth of the use cases. Before showing the deployment of the aiXDR, I just want to show the MSSP deployment. MSSP stands for Managed Security Service Provider. I don't know if there are any MSSPs on the call, but LinkShield is our primary MSSP partner. And through LinkShield, we do offer MSSP program as well to their MSSP customers. And in that case, you can have multitudes of clients handled in a multi-tier, multi-tenancy fashion. And I'll show this in a demo that will be much better, easily understood than this. But let me show how the aiXDR deployment looks like. So typically, there are two major components or three major components in the system. The analytics and policy engine is the fast big data streaming platform, and this is where most of the analytics and all the threat model engines run, machine learning, AI-based algorithms run. The CCE is our collector, and this is typically in the client network. And this is the one that, just like any other SIM collector, will collect all the logs and flows from various devices, network or servers or hosts, applications, and so on. But with the EDR functionality, we can even have endpoint agents on the servers as well as the mobile devices and so on. And those are all collected into what we call a cloud-based EDR server. And that EDR server, just like a collector, is sending the metadata directly to the APE. So all the raw data is processed by either the collector or the EDR server coming from the endpoint agents, right? And the APE is where all the metadata is saved. If you want, from compliance perspective, all the raw logs are stored as well into the long-term storage directly from the collector. So that all goes, or from the agents directly. So all that is also available from compliance perspective. And then the UI just runs off of the API so that the MSSP SOC analyst, like LinkShield SOC analyst, or the customer can directly take a look. Even Sekian team can take a look during the threat hunting or debugging or forensic analysis sessions with the customer. From the typical cost perspective, there is only single license to all of this, and almost all of these components are in Sekion cloud. So as a result, on your premises, typically you need only the endpoint agent and a collector, and that's about it. All of the rest of the things are all software based in the cloud, and the services are provided like that. If you have a requirement that data should not go out of the country, in that case, this can be deployed on the premise, and it can be all on the premise as well. We have done that time and again several times. We have several government customers. We are CMMC and FedRAMP compliant. We have shown those compliances to many different state and local governments, federal government agencies, and so on. So definitely, that also works. We are also deployed in air gap networks. So even air gap networks can be deployed as well. Any questions so far on the deployment side?
Okay, the just question about the threat hunting, the value of the tool for threat hunting. If you can explain about and how we can use for threat hunting, basically.
Absolutely. Great question. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that question directly into the demo because I think I'm on pretty much last 2 slides or so, and I will go to a demo, and in demo, I'm going to dive deep into the threat hunting part, showing you all different capabilities of the threat hunting. And that will answer the question in detail. So bear with me for a couple of slides, and then we'll switch to the demo. So what are the various benefits, right? Some of the benefits that you get is reduced time to identify as well as reduced time to respond. Most of this is automated. So our goal is to do all this in real time. Most of the times it depends on what data sources are included and what remediation things are included. So your organization is very critical in making sure that does happen in real time, right? That's our goal, to do it in minutes or less than a minute as much as possible, right? If everything is automated, we know that it will be machine doing the things pretty much in sub-second level, right? It can happen. The other benefits are, of course, the compliance. I did talk about a lot of different types of compliance reports. We are US government nowadays have a CMMC model, which will replace the FedRAMP. We are compliant on that as well, and we do provide that. Comprehensive visibility into everything and anything that you own. Very flexible, scalable architecture so that as your posture changes, as you start adopting more SaaS applications or hybrid nature of the things, you're still completely covered, and that's the beauty of it. It is a much reasonable cost compared to most of the XDR solutions. Talk to LinkShield, our partner. They'll walk you through the pricing and show you how reasonable it is with all of this included. And obviously, there's a eventual goal that with aiXDR deployed is most of the times you won't need many point products. We don't tell you to eliminate those day one, but as you go along, as your confidence builds, as your trust builds in the platform, we will work with you to help you eliminate some of those additional costs over a period of time. So those are all benefits. We have many awards since the inception or the first product launch almost 5 years back, 165 plus awards. So, and a lot of industry thought articles by most of the leadership. If you just follow us on the LinkedIn, you'll see all of that. And with that, I'm going to switch to the demo and also answer the threat hunting question. But let me ask if there was any other question while I switch to the demo.
No question at the moment.
All right. Joaquin, I assume you can see my demo screen, correct?
Yes, correct.
All right. So I'm actually logged in into the live demo system. Actually, this is a live system, which is our managed security service provider platform. It is powered by AIMSSP, as you can see at the bottom here. And each of these tile is a different tenant. So there are multiple tenants that we are managing. Some of these are demo, some of these are real. Our company is a real data, and that's where I'll walk through the data. A lot of that is live data. I'll show you even we can track my own laptop or my own login using that as well. So this screen is primarily the dashboard. You know, when you log in as a customer, this is where you will be, but you can create a lot of the shortcuts. You can mark several screens as your favorite screens so that you can come back to them. You know, I have several different dashboards as my favorite, and I can keep coming back to them very quickly. Um, and there's still, you know, quite a few notifications, and that's because this is a lot of the data is also generated through demo scripts so that we constantly have some alerts to showcase. So some of these alerts that you see are all demo alerts. So we are looking at 7 days of the dashboard. So this is a weekly data, but you can go and change that to, you know, a very small duration of 15 minutes all the way up to 90 days. So up to 90 days of the data is kept in a real time machine. And then beyond that, all the raw data is kept up to 7 years based on, you know, how long you need it for compliance. So it can just go into the cold storage up to 7 years and then brought back for more historical analysis if need be. So in that 7-day period, we are looking at 109 million different events. SECAN is a very small organization, but we do run a lot of applications, and you can see that it's a software vendor, so many applications in that. And within that 1 week, we have about half a million or so indicators of compromise. A typical platform would give you that many indicators of compromise in a week, and that's just too many indicators of compromise to weed through. And most of the times you fine tune that and, you know, write the scripts and rules and other things to suppress the noise. But in that process, that, you know, key false negative may happen where you may miss the real attack, where you may miss the needle in the haystack. Instead, you know, if you let the platform do that using the behavioral science and threat model engines, that's the beauty of aiXDR platform, that it, you know, correlates that down to 17 major or critical alerts, much more manageable. Now, a lot of those are demo alerts. So typically, and all of this data, you can deep dive. You can drill down into that. I can see all the threat indicators by distribution, and I can drill down into those. I can see some of the high level data right here, top 5 blacklisted sites by flow count, top 5 hosts using the most bandwidth, top 5 public sites that we are accessing as an organization, top 5 internal hosts talking to the internet, top 5 applications based on the bandwidth, and so on. And every data that I show is drillable. So I'm just going to go into some of the alerts and show you how the platform's advanced correlation brings various things together. So that, you know, you see the power of the platform, all of the different sources coming together in a single shot. I'm connecting over a VPN, so somehow today it's unusually slow. So the alert screen basically shows you, I clicked on those 17, and that's what it is showing, those 17 different alerts within that 1 week period. But I can change the periods, or I can just filter based on various things. So let me just show some of the alerts that could be of interest to show the power of the platform. And I don't see that. I'm just going to use a longer period and see if I can see some 0-day alerts. Okay, there are few that were outside the 1 week window. And so when you get an alert, a major or critical alert notification, typically what you get is you get a single line alert information. And what we mean by that is you get what type of alert it is, what is the severity of it, what is the user involved in that, what is the host or asset group involved in that, and what is our confidence score. So you get all that detail in that, and if the auto remediation was done, you'll get a remediation results as well, that this was what was applied, and here is a result of that. So all that information comes as a part of the either email or a SMS text notification to you. But the most important things to understand is that alert is correlated through tons of different types of indicators of compromise. Each of these is an indicator of compromise, and you can see that there are different origins. It could be based on the host logs or user logs, could be based on the network activity through NetFlow, SFlow, JFlow that we are seeing. It could be based on application logs and so on, or it could be based on the machine learning. So all those different types of threat indicator sources are merged together or correlated in order to show this. And I can go through this in detail. So for example, there are so many times a new connection is made to the application and host. Many times that's okay, these new connections happening because of new VMs getting created or otherwise, it all might be okay. But as long as the rest of the behavior is the same, right? But if there are other things like unusual duration, prohibited country access, and let me show some of the other things. Potential network probe, this happened 47 times. And each of these, you can drill down further. If you want to see, show me the details of this. I'm just going to slide a little bit up. Show me the details of all these network probes, what was happening from which host, and so on. All that data is at your fingertips quickly to look at what kind of protocol application was used in order to do this, right? And if the geolocation was also available, that also it will show in detail. So it's all geo-enriched as well, user enriched, geo-enriched, application enriched, and so on and on in that. So all that, and to see this in a much easier and graphical manner, we also have what we call a trending chart. So there is a event trending chart that's showing you, and you can see that this is happening over a period of time from 25th June all the way until. So of course, the alert went major or critical at this particular day, 3rd July. But because this is a demo alert, we have definitely left it in the system, right? But in a typical organization, when this kind of attack is detected, it would have been remediated automatically, in real time, that time itself, on that day itself. So many times these are sort of the stealth mode activities of the hackers. And here you can see that there were some unusual number of connections, typical unusual application, and so on. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it was indeed an attack, right? It's a new connection and so on that we are detecting. So as I'm browsing through various things, it's showing me all that different types of things that are happening. And I can also drill down. So if I drill down inside this particular day, now on that 3rd July, it's showing me sort of a more hourly basis what is happening, in detail. And I can see that, it's some of these activities, suspicious VPN and others that caused it to go major, right? So there's a suspicious VPN with that, and prior to that there was a unusual connection as well. I'm just trying to determine there are a lot of new connections to the applications and so on. But this red one here is the potential network probe, and that network probe is probably what sort of tripped it and made it a major. So you can see all that at your fingertips quickly. And when an alert comes to you, typically there will be an incident analysis package that's included as a part of that. And that incident package will include everything. It will include all the, even endpoint activities included by the endpoint agents, network activities included by the network probes and so on, as well as, any other correlation activities like which user, based on the identity logs, which application, which databases, or which external URLs that you are accessing, things like that. And many a times you can take the action, if not taken automatically, by right then and there through this. You can just come here, you can choose the push button, remediate, and I can push the policies. Right now, we have 2 different firewalls configured as the remediator devices. So it's going to go ahead and push the policies to block accesses to all these different blacklisted sites from where the connections are coming. So it's going to block all of those, and all these appropriate policies will be pushed to both of those firewalls that we had talked about. So if I hit the update, that's exactly what it's doing. So now it is assigned that to me as an administrator, as well as hit the remediation. That's what I did. If I had typed in any notes, it would have done that also. So you can just type in any notes, real alert, pushing policies. So you can put all kinds of comments and add that as well. So all your, anything that you do is also tracked and kept around. So this is going to, keep updating the alert, and you can see that in the alert log status as well. Now I think this alert might go into the remediation mode, and as soon as it goes into, actually it did detect that it could not push the policy because of some other bad network connections. So you get that feedback instantaneously as well, that what happened as a part of that remediation push. Was it successful? If it failed, why it failed? And you get all that data instantaneously to you. Somebody had asked about the false positives also. It's very easy to give the feedback to the system. You can definitely mark it as a not an alert. And if you do that, it's going to ignore those specific behaviors in that algorithm so that it doesn't reselect the same alerts. But if there are other misbehaviors, it will still track those and use those in that detection. So I'm now going to go to the question that somebody had asked about threat hunting and go answer that first before coming back to other parts of the demo. But feel free to ask more questions because making sure we answer all your questions is the most important thing than just going through the demo itself. So the question of threat hunting, so if I want to just see all the different threat indicators associated with my name, right? I can very easily generate that as a part of the threat hunting. And you can see that, I just logged in today, which was a new connection from this host, and so on and on. So all these indicators of compromise are today, but none of these is alerts, right? None of this is correlated with any bad activities. So there are no alerts associated with my login. I'm just going to choose a longer period to see some login failures. Sorry about that. um, so I'm just going to, and the threat hunting also gives you a lot of different ways to filter various things. I'm actually using username, but you could go with the source or destination hosts or addresses, and then you can also do this using applications. I'll show that also shortly. But there are almost 200 different types of the events that are sort of tracked, right? And this could be generated by all various sources. Could be the endpoint agent running on the host, or just the logs collected by the collector. Could be network activity based on the flows and other things. Could be an application logs, or could be machine learning. So all those different things are contributing to it, and all of these are tracked. So if I want to see just the login failures, for example, so I can select login failures and say, show me the login failures associated with my username. And in this period, almost 10 days, 11 days, there are only 2 login failures. And but these are super events, right? I mean, they not necessarily mean there are only 2. If I click on that, we can see how many times it happened. Here it is definitely only once, but there could have been, few login failures within the short span. Sometimes, those could mean there is a brute force attack also, right? I mean, if you cross certain threshold and then you succeed, it can very easily detect that as a brute force and so on, or password spraying or other kinds of attacks as well. So you'll see that. I'll show some of the alerts related to that as well. You can
Well,
also
quick question here.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting question. Asking about if mandatory use and some specific brand of firewalls or endpoint or antivirus or devices to be used with secure solution.
Working on
Basically, if we secure is attached for some firewall brand or something like that, I think it's coming because Palo Alto use yours Palo Alto, and the
yeah.
idea of XDR is to be open.
Great question. Yeah. So just to let you know, firewall is something that we consider as a basic hygiene. We don't include firewall as a part of the XDR solution, and we are not dependent on any specific firewall. We can work with all kinds of firewalls. Palo Alto next-gen, firewall by Palo Alto is probably the best firewall out there. But of course, Cisco ASAs, Juniper, SRX, or Fortinets, or Sophos, or any of these Sonic Wall and so on and on are absolutely okay. As long as there is a firewall, we can integrate with that and provide you full protection. We work seamlessly with all of those. We can even work with some of the less common known firewalls as well. Meraki, for example, is very cheap and common. Typically switches and routers are used from those, but we integrate with those and we can push policies even with those as well. We had heard about some routers called Yama in Japan, and we integrated with those. So most of the traditional firewalls will be working seamlessly, and there's inbuilt integrated solution already ready to go. Antivirus, yes, if you have a next-gen AV solution, sure, we will integrate with those also. Sophos endpoint solution or any of the EDR solution, if you already have, we integrate with those, and you don't need to purchase the endpoint agents in that case, and your cost will go down accordingly. It will be just the AI SIEM solution without any endpoint agents, and your cost will go down. But if you do need endpoint agents, then it will be aiXDR. So if you don't have an next-gen AV, or if you don't have a EDR solution, then aiXDR is the best way to move forward. That way, you get full protection with the endpoint agents being present for some of the critical servers as well as mobile devices. Joaquin, did I answer the question?
Yeah, I think it's
Okay.
completely answered.
Okay. Um, There's also, all kinds of filtering capabilities. You can also filter just based on regular expressions. For example, I can just, put a string like ABC and filter based on that. Obviously, there's no data to display with that, but you can do that very quickly as well if you're finding certain things and so on. Let me go to some of the other investigation reports. I was just trying to find out some, application specific reports to show. Yeah, right here. So you can, so DMZA is a way. Typically, Fed government can ask you to provide DMZA report based on any host at any given point in time, and a lot of the organizations are required to do that, and typically, so one of the university was required to do that. They asked us that, hey, it typically takes us 1 week worth of a resource time to generate this report whenever that request comes in, and there were about 2 to 3 requests every year. So it was a good amount of time, almost 1 month worth of time that they were spending every year. So we showed them how quickly they can, do this. This could be done by host name also. Doesn't have to be application, but you can do it by application specific also. So I can just look at, type in any application, your own DevOps application, and check all the logs related to that, and do more fine-grained forensic analysis or others within this. I'm just going to go through some of the reports. I know there is only 10 minutes left, so I'm just going to show some high-level reports and also show some comprehensive visibility. But if there are any other questions, please do ask. I want to spend more time in answering the questions rather than just keep on showing you the platform. So I'm just going to show some, security posture report for last 7 days, and it's going to show you all the different things. It's going to show you all the alerts that were found, how many closed, how many open, what is the trend. It's going to show you what blacklisted sites, top 10 blacklisted sites visited by the organization, top 10 hosts with the most alerts, top 10 users with most alerts, and so on and on. There's some network problem that I'm seeing, and sorry about that. That's why it is taking a long time to load. So while that is loading, I'm going to start another tab just to show.
They have one question here about the amount of people need to use this tool, comparing like a solution like Splunk. You need a complete team to manage and monitor the solution.
Yeah, great question. So we are deployed, as I said, in several government agencies. One of that is a large state in eastern coast of United States, and they had Splunk prior to us, and about 40 consulting agents to manage the Splunk. They have about 60 odd agencies, different agencies, road, transportation, police, law, and so on. And all those agencies were managed through the Splunk using these 40 engineers. So you can see that very high CapEx, but also very high OpEx. 40 engineers, consultant engineers cost that can operate Splunk is huge. With second aiXDR solution, they not only managed to reduce that cost down to only 4 engineers across all 60 agencies. So that was the biggest cost savings to them, apart from some CapEx savings as well that we showed that, here is how much Splunk will cost you if you keep on expanding, taking all the traffic versus what AI SIEM will cost you in that comparison. And then we added the endpoint agents as well as a part of the XDR. So those are some of the things that
They have another question about the hardware requirements. If heavy hardware requirement or is not too heavy, like is better performance with low level hardware than the other solutions in the market. They're comparing with the platform Allsim. They need a lot of hardware to run up and keep the data in the for forensics analysis.
Yeah, great question. So if you go the cloud model, LinkShield is our certified partner to offer services from Secam Cloud. And if you go that model, the only hardware that you need is the collector and the endpoint agents. And based on that, the endpoint agent is very lightweight. It does not consume much footprint. It's much smaller in footprint as well as CPU utilization. The collectors are typically for a 1,000 employee organization could be about 8 core, 8 gig, or maybe 4 core, 4 gig memory kind of virtual machine VM. So, or if you put a box, hardware box, it will typically cost $500 to $800 for that. So with that, you should be able to cover completely. Now, if you want it on premise, if your analytics and policy engine, which is the fast big data streaming platform, if that is on premise, then yes, the cost of the hardware can go up. It could be for a 1,000 employee organization, I would say it is roughly $5,000 hardware cost, inclusive of all the different components. If it is around 5,000 to 10,000 employees, the cost will be hardware about 15K US dollars. I'm talking about, and if it is a real large enterprise, more than 10,000 employees, it may be up to 25K. It's all dependent on all the data sources and all the data that we'll be looking at, and we'll price it accordingly. And the hardware can be purchased independent of us. We show you the configuration and what is our cost, and you are free to purchase it outside from your preferred vendors. Okay, so on this screen, I'm trying to show the EDR part of the things also. So you can see that this is the, there are quite a few agents that we have downloaded, and almost all of those are Windows. But of course, we support Windows, Linux, Mac, all those three types of the OS right now. And it shows how many of those are offline versus online. Offline from the company's network, right? It's not seeing the data right now. And these many are online, and you can actually go to the host and actually see the each host by host as well. So all of that, I can run live queries on this. So these are all the hosts that are in the system right now. I can see all the rules that are running in and fine tune those. So the rules are things that we have tried to do to make sure all different types of misbehaviors are captured much earlier. And these are based on all the different types of MITRE attack. We cover almost 75% MITRE overall with aiXDR. And this is much larger than CrowdStrike, Cylance, Sentinel-1, Palo Alto XDR, any of those that you name it, how much MITRE coverage is, you can see. And that's because the platform is built with EDR, NDR, network detection and response, and managed SIEM all together. And that's why that happens. And then you can also run live queries. So in the live queries, you can just go ahead, type any queries, select all the platforms, and run it. So very, if there is a real attack happening right now in the internet or that you're worried about, a lot of the live queries can be quickly run, and this can be submitted for various things. So request various things, and I can select all the hosts and just run it. So I'm just not going to run anything right now, but I just wanted to show some of those things. Let me see if the security posture. Seems something is wrong there. I'm going to see if I can run some operational report. Any other question? Again, I think we are pretty much on time to close, but I just wanted to show one or two reports before concluding.
No more question at the moment.
Great. So I'm just generating some reports. As I was talking about the security posture report earlier, but this is sort of an operational report and also gives you data like top destinations by bandwidth usage or by flows, top sources by bandwidth and by flows, and so on and on. It's taking a long time to just load because of some network issue, which could be on my side. I just don't know what it is that's causing this delay, but rest assured that this will be completely working and showing you in that real time. So if there are no other questions, we can pretty much conclude this session. I just want to show the visualization prior to concluding.
No, well, we don't have more questions. Just thanks for your time and for a demo. It's very walkthrough about the solution and how we can use the visibility and threat hunting capabilities to us manage and see everything inside in our infrastructure with the visibility as we require in the current world we are facing. Thank you, Lalit, for your time, and we can keep in contact with everyone. If you have any other question, we can provide to Lalit by email, and we can keep contact you guys. Si tienen alguna pregunta, cualquier otra pregunta que les quede pendiente, se la hacemos la pueden hacer vía correo electrónico. Igual la conferencia estará grabada para todos los que estén pendientes. Y bueno, muchas gracias por el tiempo y que tengan un excelente día. Thanks, Lalit, for everything.
Thank you for your time, everybody.